going on, everybody? This is the Windy City Bropen PGA DFS live before lock. This will be our first live PGA DFS show streaming on YouTube and Facebook. So thank you to all that watch and tune in. We very much appreciate it. Before I get into it this week, I just want to go ahead and let you guys know and remind you of the August 2nd for fantasy sake golf outing. This will be played at Highland Springs and Saki golf courses. It starts at 8 a.m. Team sign up, it's $320 a team, $80 a person. Included in that will be drink and food vouchers from Lifted Energy and Hungry Carnivore. So definitely let DJ or myself know if you guys are interested in getting involved with that event. All proceeds for the from this will go to the For Fantasy Sake Foundation, which funds community-driven efforts that gives back. In particular, some of it's like Toys for Tots, for example. So if you guys are interested in golfing this summer, beginning of August, let us know. We'd love to have you there. But all right, we will get into it. This week, the PGA Tour heads to Doral, aka the Blue Monster. From everything I've read this week, this is a bit of a brute. It's got some teeth to it. It's definitely not an easy course. It's long and difficult. So it should present a challenge for these 70-some-odd golfers that are going to be in the field this week. But first things first, what do we check every week first before we even begin to think about building our lineups? That is weather. So the weather for this week, I know it's a little bit different with the no-cut event. It still matters. But in this week in particular, it does not. My buddy Potty, shout out to Potty, hooking me up with the windy.com weather and the HRRRR. It looks like the weather's pretty tame. I'm not considering it too heavily with my builds this week. I don't think the weather's going to be a factor, at least Thursday, Friday. I might come into play over the weekend for sure. I didn't get to look ahead of that far ahead. And sometimes the weather changes on us anyways. But as far as Thursday and Friday goes, it's looking pretty tame. Doesn't look like it'll be too much trouble, which is good because there is a lot of trouble lurking around this course. So definitely want to keep that in mind. The big thing this week that everybody's been talking about is driving distance and particularly good drive percentage and guys that are good with their long irons. So, I mean, this even missing just a little bit here can lead to a lot of trouble. It doesn't take much to be finding yourself trying to save for bogey here at this course. So that is definitely something to consider. You want guys that are going to keep it in the fairway and particularly hit it far, and then back it up with good long iron to play. This rough surface is Bermuda, and the putting surface is Bermuda. So that'll definitely come into play. It's gonna be tough this week. There's no other way to say it. They don't play here very often. The last time they played here was 2016. I'm not exactly sure why the PGA brought it back. I think from what I understand, it used to be a somewhat popular course. But yeah, if the guys aren't committing to their shots this week, there's a lot of trouble lurking. And if you're not committing to your shot, you're probably missing your mark, and then you're going to end up in a lot of trouble. So this week, definitely consider good drive percentage and long iron play. I think those two things are going to be very important. And it's also a no-cut event with like 71 to like 73 golfers. This is a week to take chances, in my opinion. Everybody's going to be leaning a certain way to the driver-heavy guys that bomb it. And I understand this is like maybe the second longest course they'll play all year. So it makes complete sense. You definitely want guys that bomb it off the tee. But that doesn't mean that your whole lineup has to be bombers. You could mix in a short hitter potentially just as a way to make yourself different. Maybe you got 5 bombers that you love, and then you want to just throw a little wrinkle in there. Throw in a guy that maybe people wouldn't consider for a long track. I'm not saying get Brian Campbell out there, but maybe a shorter hitter might make sense as a way to be a little bit different. Given that there's only 70-some golfers in the field, you have to find at least a little bit of a way to make yourself different. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and get into the sleepers that I like this week. And just as I mentioned, I'm going to go with the guy that is a short hitter. There's actually 2 guys that I like, and one of them is Brian Harman. He's not a bomber. He's not a bomber. Nobody's going to want to play Brian Harman this week. And in a no-cut, it's kind of the way I'm just going to get to him as somebody that's going to make my lineup different, because maybe I'm going to load up on these bomber type golfers with the long iron game. And Brian Harman might be the one guy that makes my lineup a little bit different this week in compared to the rest of the field. So that's why I like Brian Harman this week, as just a leverage play, more or less. A guy that is going to get overlooked. Another guy I like, I don't love him, but I do think he could be sneaky this week, is Patrick Rogers. Uh, he's very inconsistent, but it's a sleeper play, right? He's a guy that could be someone that pops off this week. He does do better at longer courses, so maybe that works out for him this week. I do think he could be sneaky. You got guys like Poke Geeter getting 10+% projected ownership down there. There's just that's just a lot of ownership for a guy that's highly inconsistent. I'll take Patrick Rogers at a quarter of the ownership over him down there. As far as the guy that I'm fading this week, I will be fading Gary Woodland. Don't I like the player and everything, but he's projected to be over 15% right now, and that's just not 7,400. 15% plus owned Gary Woodland is just not a guy that I'm going to be getting to playing, especially in a no cut small field. That's just a lot of ownership for a guy that could definitely burn you. He definitely could not crack the top 40 this week. It's in the range of outcomes for him. So I'll be fading Gary Woodland this week. Now, there's 3 guys that I like this week. So that's kind of the benefit of doing these live videos. I can do a little bit more. I with the short videos, I'm kind of limited. I only give you guys one guy that I like. Here, I'm going to give you 3 guys that I like. The one that I like the most is Sam Burns. I like Bermuda Burns here. I think he's been pretty good off the tee. He's been playing some pretty good golf of late. I like this course for him. He probably will let me down on Sunday. That's just kind of his thing. But he's been playing some good golf, so he's one guy that I'm definitely going to be looking at playing in my lineup this week. The other 2 are Russ Henley and Victor Hovland. The reason I like Russ is he is the 3rd highest priced golfer, and nobody's going to play him. He's going to probably be 10% or less owned up top because everybody's going to probably click Scotty or Cameron Young, or they're going to just opt to skip Russ Henley. And I think maybe Cal is the next click reasonably there. So I just think Russ is kind of a sneaky leverage play up top that if you want to find a way to be different and you like the other golfers in the mid range and you want to eat some of their ownership, like playing Russ up top would be a way to get different. And this is a little bit of a homer play, but Victor Hovland, I think this course kind of sets up well for him. I know he's not the best around the green player by any means, and it's going to matter this week, but I just feel like around the green out of Bermuda could be a little bit different. Like, it's not your typical like tight lies around the green. Like, I think the outcome of hitting the ball out of the Bermuda rough, it could be random how it comes out. So I think that like favors Victor, who's not as skilled around the green. But those are the 3 guys that I like this week. And that I'll probably be getting to in some fashion. I play 2 lineups a week, so I'll probably be getting 2, maybe 3 of those guys into my lineups. I still haven't decided on if I'm going to play Scotty this week or not. It just feels like he's about to win one, and the fields doesn't have every best golfer in it. You're missing Rory, Bobby Mack's missing, Xander's missing, Can't Play's missing. There's some guys missing from the field this week, so it just kind of sets up. This guy's got back-to-back T2s. It could be Scotty's week to win. So, like, if I don't go Scotty this week, it's pretty feasible that I could fit all 3 guys that I like at the top of my lineup combined with one of the sleepers that I like this week, and then I can figure out the rest from there. That's just kind of what I'm thinking this week. It's a no-cut event. So, to me, there's really not that many bad plays going into a week. If you like a guy and you got a hunch or your research and process leads you to a certain player, I say go for it because you don't know what's going to happen in a no-cut event. They get 4 guaranteed rounds. So a guy could maybe have 1 bad round, but if he stacks 3 good rounds together, he might end up being a guy you needed to have. So that's just something to consider when you got these no-cut events. It's a better time to take a chance because they get more opportunity. And that's what makes, to me, golf is more fun than like football or basketball because golf in those other sports, you don't know their value. Golf, guys guaranteed at least 36 holes a week. And now in this situation, they're guaranteed 72 holes. They're all getting the same amount of opportunities. So that's why in a no cut, I do prefer to try to take my chances just because I know these guys are going to get the same amount of opportunities. You do need to find certain guys that are good golfers. I'm not, when I say like don't play chalk or like I'm fading a guy that's 15%, like Gary Woodland, that doesn't mean like fade everybody that's 15+% on. Like I might play Scotty and he might be the highest owned player this week. It's just you have to find ways to make yourself different when you do play those chalky guys. So like Brian Harmon, for example, he's probably gonna be less than 3% owned this week. He's a perfect like one guy to make the lineup different. So that's just something to consider every week when you're building. Like just not all chalk is bad chalk. Some chalk is just chalk for a very good reason because that player is very good and they're gonna have a good week. So you just have to consider that. I have a closing thought here. Um, every week when you're building a lineup, you should have a process. You should have kind of your way you go through your week. What for me, for example, I start my week off. I start reading about the course, reading articles, and then from there, after I take that, I go out and I build my model. I have a model that I build on BetSports Golf through the rabbit hole. Shout out Ron Close. Love what they do over there. I build a model every week. And that doesn't mean models are the way to go. Like what works for one person doesn't work for everybody. But I like to get on there and build models and kind of just dissect the stats. You can change a lot of different things on there. Like I could set up like a player's strokes gained off the tee on long, difficult courses. That's very hyper specific. But that's what I'm looking for here. This is a long, difficult course. So I want to see the guys that are better at long, difficult courses. So that's one thing that I do every week. I use a model. Again, like I said, it's not the end all be all, but it helps me. That's part of my process. But every week, you should have a process when you're going through building your lineups, and learn from it every week, right? Maybe one week, uh, you played a guy you said you weren't going to play, you got talked into him, and you played him, and it burns you. Remember that. You need to be conscious of what you're doing every week because if you keep repeating the same process over and over again, you're going to keep getting the same results. So you got to be willing to adjust if you're not winning or you're not putting out quality lineups. Even when you do cash, you're not reaching that high end outcome. It's just something to consider every week. Always be trying to tailor your process and make it better because that's what this game is. You need to have a process. If you want to find success in this game, you need to have a process and things that you're doing every week when you're building your lineups. I see I got some comments in here. What? We got some interesting comments in here. What's going on? YK Pro? Inspired Cheese? I'm not even going to repeat what that guy said. Yeah, what's going on, folks? I appreciate you guys all tuning in. I don't have too many other thoughts for the week. No cut events. Just kind of hoping to take a few shots out there and maybe win some money this week. But I'll be back with you guys Friday night. I'm going to do a round 3 showdown. It'll just be a quick little 5-10 minute video. Maybe I get a special guest appearance out of Zach. I know he's been super busy lately. But that's kind of the plan. Good luck the next 2 days, and I will be back with you guys on Friday night. Thank you for tuning in.